Hey everyone, in this video we're going to go over the top money habits that actually will build you wealth. And I know this personally because I have tried almost every money habit, and over the years I've learned which ones have actually grown my net worth and which ones have actually done nothing or even hurt my net worth. So in this video we're going to go through all of these and we are going to rank them from S to F tier. And if you stick around to the end, I'm going to show you the S tier money habits that will actually increase your net worth the fastest and are most effective. So let's get started, and the first one is going to be budgeting, and we've all heard of budgeting. So budgeting is a great thing that beginners can use to begin to learn about their finances. However, budgeting is just for awareness, and it is not always going to be the main thing that creates the wealth. You need to have the awareness as a foundation, but you're going to need additional steps to actually create wealth with the budget that you do have. So for this reason, we're going to rank budgeting at B. Because let's be honest, budgeting sets the foundation for everything else that we do. Alright, so the next money habit that we have is going to be diversifying income streams. So I love diversifying income streams, but let's be honest, we've all heard of the wealthy people who have many income streams. Sometimes they'll have 5 to 10 different income streams between businesses, real estate, things like stocks, or even dividends, and they all bring in money. However, what a lot of people don't realize is that usually wealthy people had one main thing that took them to a point of great wealth, whether it was a business or one big investment in something, and they went all in. The fact that they went all in on one thing gave them a competitive market advantage or allowed them to be specialized in one thing, and that gave them an advantage over others when it came to growing their wealth. The thing is, if you're still in your growth phase, it is much more of an administrative headache trying to manage all these different investments, and they all generally will not compound as fast as if you just went into one thing. For example, if you try to invest into stocks and you also try to invest into a rental property and you also try to figure out what the best dividend is, you may have income from each of these things, but you're not going to get a competitive advantage because your time is spread so thin and you're much more bound to make mistakes. There is a saying that it takes 10,000 hours to become good at something and to become an expert. So it's hard to get that 10,000 hours in something if you're so diversified when you're trying to grow your portfolio. So for this purpose, I'm going to rank it at C. It's good, but it's honestly limited when you're trying to grow your net worth. The next money habit we have is going to be avoiding lifestyle inflation. Lifestyle inflation is when you make additional income, but then you adjust your lifestyle to a greater point where you're spending all of the disposable income that you just made additionally. So it becomes a vicious cycle where you constantly feel like you need to make more because you are also spending more. This is one of the biggest wealth killers there is. And you can see how common this is if you just drive around on the road. You will see all of these brand new cars that cost $50,000 to $100,000 on the road, yet the average income in America is sometimes even less than what some of these cars cost. So avoiding lifestyle inflation is one of the greatest underrated strategies to building your net worth. This is why someone that makes $60,000 per year can actually save more and contribute more to their net worth every single year than someone that makes $100,000 or more. Because a person making $100,000 or more that has lifestyle inflation may go ahead and spend all of that money on things that don't improve their net worth. So for this reason, I'm going to rate this at A. This has a high impact on building your net worth and helps you accumulate your net worth faster. I go into further detail about each of these topics within my personal finance community, so I'll leave a link in the description if you want to go back and check that out. The next money habit is going to be extreme frugality. And this just means being extremely cheap with what you spend money on. When I first started on my personal finance journey, I honestly wanted to increase my savings rate as much as I possibly could. So as a result, I was extremely frugal with what I would spend my money on. If it wasn't helping to increase my net worth, I wasn't going to be spending any money on it. But the problem with this is that you don't end up living a life at all. I ended up burning myself out and I was really stressed out and not enjoying the things that you should be enjoying in life. I hadn't been on a vacation in probably years at that time, and I hadn't bought any new clothes, and I rarely went out to eat. The thing is, this is generally a low return on your investment. It's extremely time heavy because you constantly have to be thinking about every purchase that you make, and if you track every single expense, it becomes a bit cumbersome. The thing is, some of the small pleasures in life, like going out to eat once in a while, are okay as long as it's in moderation and you're not doing it every single day. And I think that this can actually be a positive thing that we have in our lives. Sometimes it's good to reward ourselves when we reach a big accomplishment or if we reach a goal. So being extremely frugal is good for survival, but for wealth building, it honestly doesn't make too much of an impact, so I'm going to rate this as a D tier. The next money habit we have is going to be automating your savings and your bills. So automating savings and your bills is going to be a great way to make sure those are taken care of and that you don't go and spend any extra money in the meantime. It removes any fatigue that you have about making decisions because that money is automatically taken out of your accounts and takes care of what you need to take care of. You will also avoid missing any payments and any penalties that might come along with that, along with any interest, which is a great thing if you want to protect your increasing net worth. If you automate your savings, you're going to automatically meet your goals that you have set because that money is going to be taken out or moved to a different account and invested every single month. Otherwise, you might be tempted to spend that money on disposable things that don't help to actually improve your overall financial net worth. The only caveat to this is that it's easy to forget about any recurring payments that you have or any subscriptions that you might be using. Also, you do need to go back and review this from time to time to make sure that you are aligning with the goals that you have. So I put this in a similar category with budgeting, where it's good for your foundations, but it's going to be limited when it comes to building your net worth. So I'm going to rank this as a C. The next money habit we have is going to be buying back your time or protecting your time. This is going to be things like landscaping, maybe a house cleaner, or things like handyman tasks, or even simple things like grocery delivery. In the beginning of your wealth building journey, it will make sense to do everything yourself, but when you get closer to a bigger net worth, it will start making sense to actually outsourcing some of these things that will take you time. Even if you spend money to have more time off and spend with your family and recover from the week, that may even allow you to work harder when the times that you are working. So I think buying back your time is a great way to spend your money, especially as you gain a higher net worth. So I'm going to rank this in the B tier. The next money habit is going to be avoiding high interest debt, and this is extremely important. Any high interest debt is going to have a drag on building their net worth. Sometimes it's unavoidable because if the interest rates are high on a mortgage, for example, and you need to buy a home, you can't really avoid that. But having things like high credit card debt is going to be an extreme drag on your net worth because any investments that you make are probably not going to gain the interest that the credit card interest will have, which the stock market on average returns 6 to 7% adjusted for inflation every year, so it makes way more sense to pay off any high interest credit card debt. So avoiding any high interest debt at all is going to have a huge impact on your ability to build wealth. So I will rate this as an A money habit. The next habit is going to be picking individual stocks. So picking individual stocks can seem really attractive after seeing stocks like Nvidia, but in the long term, I see it as a risk. Index funds are generally easier, don't take much research, and have consistent growth over time, and have proven to do so. Only 5 to 10% of day traders are actually profitable in the long term. It takes a lot of time to research individual stocks, and this is time that could be spent working on things like building your skills. It takes a lot of time to research individual stocks, and I think that time could be better spent elsewhere, but that's just me personally. After all, we do have stocks like AMC that do exist. Alright, we've actually reached the point where we're going to go through the S tier money habits that have actually increased my wealth. The first one is going to be consistently investing and letting compound growth go to work. It's simple, it's repeatable, and it's absolutely proven. With enough invested, your portfolio will actually start growing faster than the contributions that you've been putting in. And it's hard to reach that point if you're not consistently investing. The more time that you have invested, the longer it has to grow. If you look at a graph of compound interest, you can see that near the end, it gets nearly exponential, and this is the point where it starts to have the greatest impact on your life. It can seem pointless in the beginning when you're looking at this chart because you don't have much of a compound growth effect, but it's important to stay the course, consistently invest, and when you reach that point, you will be glad that you did. For example, if you have $100,000 invested and it gets an average return of 7%, you would have $7,000 per year. That is over $500 per month, and this might actually exceed the contributions that you have to get to that point. So a lot of that heavy lifting begins to be done for you. And the other S tier money habit is actually going to be increasing your income. This is a lot easier said than done, but it's one of the highest leverage habits that you can have. If you think about a budget, your expenses can only be decreased to zero, but your income cap is essentially unlimited. So sometimes you'll get to a point where you've reduced your expenses so much, but there's nothing else you can do in the expenses section. So now you have to look at your income, and your income, if you can increase it, is one of the greatest ways you can increase your savings rate, your investments, and honestly, your lifestyle in general. Like I was talking about with compound growth before, getting to that point where it becomes exponential is super important, and one of the fastest ways to get there is by increasing your income, which as a result increases your savings rate. A great way to do this is to improve your skills in something and become a master at one thing. Becoming a professional at one thing allows you to charge premium prices whether you own your own business or whether you are an expert employee. So I want to know what you think about this list, and if there's anything that you think that should have been ranked differently, let me know in the comments below. And again, if you want to check out my personal finance community, I'll have a link to that in the description below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.